Hey, today I want to talk about something called OCD, Obsessive Compulsive Disorder. And to do that, I want to go on a little bit of a field trip because I want to talk about what it is and what it isn't, as well as maybe give you a tool along the way to help you if you have it or know somebody that has OCD. Check it out. Hi, this is Brett, your favorite shrink, and today we're going to go on a field trip. We're going to go into my closet, right? Because I want to dispel a myth. We have a myth of what we think OCD looks like, and I want you to see what OCD doesn't look like. So come on in. So here's the myth. We believe that people that are highly organized, we just call them OCD, right? We just think that they are obsessive. Well, I want to show you that I am highly organized. But does that mean I'm OCD? You decide. Let me show you around just real quick. So first off, I want to show you that I probably am the only guy that you know that has a jewelry box. Here is my jewelry box. Pretty weird for a guy, right? In it, I have watches. I even have watch bands for my Apple Watch that I can trade out depending on what I'm wearing. In it, I also have one of my favorite items. You know what they are. My cufflinks. I love my cufflinks, right? I always wear them. But it gets even weirder because I even have my own custom collar pins. But we're not going to stop there because it gets even worse. As we look over here in my beautiful shoe rack, what I want you to notice about my shoe rack is that all my shoes, they also have in them, they have shoe molds to keep their shape nice and clean. So none of my shoes get kind of weird or funky shapes to them. All right, so I have organized shirts and suits. But let's look inside the drawers to really see what's going on. Don't get weird on me. I'm talking about the dresser drawers because that's where you really see if people are organized or not. So let's pull this open just for a second and take a peek. And what you'll see inside is that these are my shirts, t-shirts, socks. And what you'll see is they're all pretty organized. And most of the time, I like to keep them ironed, right? The guy that irons his underwear right here. So what do you think? What's the verdict, you guys? OCD or not OCD? Well, the answer is not OCD. I know that's hard to believe looking at this amazing organization that I have here, but the answer is true. I don't have OCD. I do have anxiety, but not OCD. I used to have OCD, so I know what OCD sounds like or feels like or experiences. I've had that. So anyway, I've had OCD. I don't have it right now, and I definitely don't have it with my closet. Why? What is OCD? Well, OCD is an obsessive compulsive disorder. And like any disorder, for it to be a disorder, it has to cause problems. If it's not causing problems, it's not a disorder. And my organization isn't causing problems. It helps. It helps me be organized, it helps me find things, and I enjoy it. I think it looks great. It brings me pleasure. Therefore, because it brings me pleasure and helps me, benefits my life, by definition, it is not a disorder because it doesn't hurt me or anybody else. So let's look at what OCD as a disorder really looks like. Staying with the theme of my own personal self-disclosures and stories, I want to talk about when I had OCD and use myself as an example of what OCD does look like. When I was a little kid, my anxiety, off the chart. And I remember things I would do, like I remember going to school, elementary school. This is not even middle school or junior high or high school. I remember going to elementary school so early in the morning, there was still dark outside. And in fact, I was there so early, I was the first one there. The gate's locked. Janitor's not even there yet. Teachers aren't there yet. There is absolutely nobody on the facility. And there I'm sitting in the front of the school, just waiting. Now that's OCD. So what was going on for me as a kid was I felt a compulsion. Obsessive is you get a thought. The C, compulsive, is a behavior that you have to do, you have to implement. So my thought was, I'm going to be late. I'm going to be late for school. The compulsion was, I got to go. And I'd get up and I'd go before anybody. Now, I remember distinctly watching teachers, faculty, janitors, everybody coming in the gates as I would just sit there and just wait. Because I was so afraid, because I was so anxious that I'd be somehow late or I would forget to get there on time. I remember also in high school, probably more middle school. My high school and middle school were the same, so some of the memories get blurry. I don't know. But I remember dressing out for gym, and we'd take all of our street clothes and we'd put it into the locker. And then you'd lock the locker and check it, and then you'd go out into the field. Well, I remember being out on the track thinking, did I lock my locker? And so I'd go back and I'd check. Okay, it's locked. Okay, good. And then I go out back on the field. Did I lock my locker? And I go back. Try the dial. Sure enough, it's locked. It's fine. I do that 3, 4, 5 times. Again, the obsessive thought was, what if? What if I didn't? The compulsion was, I have to go check. I have to go check. I have to go check. And if you don't follow the rules, if you don't follow through with the compulsion, anxiety floods. So I remember what I'd have to do is I'd have to hit the locker as hard as I could. Wham! And then when I'm out on the field and I could feel how my hand felt sore, I go, okay, that's my confirmation. I lock my locker. I lock my locker. Right? Crazy stuff. But that's what OCD does to you. It makes you do things that you don't want to do, you have to do. Now here's the sad part. Every time you do it, every time you follow through with exactly what your OC tells you to do, your OCD tells you what to do, you reinforce it. You make it stronger. It gets worse and worse and worse. Because when you're feeling anxious and then you do something to take away the anxiety, that is called a negative reinforcer. You're removing some negative situation in your environment, and that is reinforcing. And so every time I'd follow through, I'd just reinforce stronger and stronger and stronger. What do you do with OCD? How do you break OCD? Well, let me tell you one more story. It's about college now. It's between my junior and senior year, and I'm on a mission trip. I go up to Alaska to work in the oldest Presbyterian mission still running today, the Anna Jackson Mission. It's up in the southeast panhandle of Alaska. My job was to help any way I could, providing vacation Bible school, providing relief for the pastors so they could leave. We even ran church camps. Well, I remember one day I was talking to a Native American woman, and what I wanted to do was I wanted to purchase a basket. This lady had been making baskets all of her life. She, to me, looked like she was 200, 300 years old. But again, I'm a young 20-something-year-old guy, so what do I know? But she looked like she'd been weaving baskets forever. And she had been weaving baskets ever since she was a little girl. And so I was just asking about baskets and talking about the baskets, and she pointed something out really interesting to me. When she gave me the basket that I had ordered and that I had purchased, she pointed out that there was a small imperfection. The imperfection was so small, I couldn't even see it. I barely even recognized it. And what she said was very interesting. She was from the Tlingit clan of Southeast Alaska, and their belief was that only God is perfect. And so what they believed was that every time they made something, they made sure they put an imperfection into what they did. Because they didn't ever want to presume to be God, or they didn't ever want to presume or act like as if they really could be God or wanted to be like God. They were human mortals. And that's what they believed was, it was audacious, it was bold, it was sacrilegious to think that you would be or could be perfect, because only God is perfect. And so she would put an imperfection in the basket. And I thought, how cool is that? Because all my life, my OCD had been pushing me to be perfect, to do everything perfect. And then from that moment on, I started to see and look for imperfections. Now, they weren't huge. Most of the time I was the only one that could notice them. I would just try to make sure that I did something. And in what I was doing, I would find something that wasn't quite right. And if I needed to, I'd put something in there that wasn't quite right. Because I wanted to break the pattern. And that's exactly how it works with OCD. See, with OCD, you cannot go mano a mano on yourself. You can't fight yourself with OCD. What happens when you do that is, I call it the Chinese finger puzzle. You know those puzzles that are, those reeds they're woven into a kind of a tube? You stick your fingers into the reeds, and then you try to pull your fingers out. The harder you pull, the more tension creates. Well, that's the way very much your OCD is, and that's the way it is when you try to fight yourself. You're just creating more collapse, more tension, more stress. So what I started to do was to find one small way that I could create imperfection in that process. And be okay with it. Okay, there's a little imperfection. Not something big, not something gross, not something huge, because the smaller the imperfection, the smaller the change in your patterns, the less resistance that you will feel. And so I create these small interrupts, as I call them, small little changes in my patterns. So small, so subtle, I get no resistance from my own internal mechanisms. But it would help me begin to shift the pattern. See, patterns are patterns. Patterns have to be the same. And when you start altering a pattern, even in small ways, you're disrupting the pattern. If I have two lines that are perfectly parallel, they will be perfectly parallel for eternity, right? But if I take a perfectly parallel two sets of lines and I alter one just slightly, over time what happens is that it deviates and begins to create change. Homework for you. If you have OCD, I want to so encourage you, one, get counseling. It's so helpful to begin to understand and change. But two, begin to create small changes for yourself. Allow small imperfections. If you wash your hands and you feel like you need to wash your hands for 3 minutes, do it for 2 minutes. 2 minutes and 92 seconds. Begin to just create a little bit of imperfection in that pattern. And what will happen is you'll begin to interrupt the pattern. Thank you so much for watching. I want to hear your story. I've shared mine. I want to hear yours. Add them in the comments below. Also, if you like the video, like the video. And if you want to learn more about interrupting patterns or how systems work, subscribe. I'm Brett, your favorite shrink, and you are watching My 5 Minds. Take care.